Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. So strap on your lids and lace them up, Rook. You're listening to the Barn Chirpers Hockey Podcast. Check them out. Clap it up, boys. Clap it up. Another week in the NHL. Another week with us here, the Barn Chirpers. You know it. Follow us at Barn Chirpers Pod on the Instagram and the threads. Anywhere you're listening, give us a like, a subscribe, and a 5-star rating. We would appreciate that. Hey, guess what? We got a lot to talk about again today in the NHL. But first, our favorite game to play, the sweater game. Because Joe, I bought a lot of sweaters recently. So this is week number 2 of 5 for the sweater game. And I'm going to try not to mess up my own game this week. It is a hot or cold answer from me. Justin will be trying to guess. He has 3 guesses to figure out the sweater that I am going to be wearing today. And I will give him the response of hot, warm, or cold. So Justin, Captain, take it away. Great Rasmus Dahlin sweater, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
It's a beaut. I love this thing.
I love that blue so much. So much.
Yeah. It's
and
all of it.
Fun fact, when the Sabres just played the Yotes, the home blue for Buffalo and the white Cochinas, what a gear matchup. But that's
that's for a different, but there's been a lot of great matchups this year.
Yeah, there really has. There really has. Okay, let's play the sweater game, and I'm going to try not to mess it up.
All right. We'll start with the easy one. Is it a Western Conference team?
Cold.
Okay, so we're going back east. Dang it. Whenever you mess the first one up.
Yeah, you don't know where to go. You only got 2 left.
Yeah. All right. So, well, we know it's Eastern. Is it a team in the Atlantic Division?
It is hot.
Okay. All right. God dang it. I mean, obviously that helps, but like, I mean, I got to get the team first before you can start guessing players.
I know. You got one more question. And then you can
All right, I'm gonna skip team. Is it attendee?
Ice cold.
Frick.
You don't got much to go off of.
I got nothing to go off of. I
would say before you even guess, I mean, knowing what you know, I already have 2 sweaters in the Atlantic Division. Know that already.
Yes, I do.
So that's a little bit of a hint, but maybe it's not.
See, if I had one more question, I could take that and run with it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'd be able to. I'm going to take a wild shot here. Matty Clutch reverse retro.
Oh, well, that one may or may not be in my cart currently, but you are ice cold. Ice cold.
Of course I am.
But this is one that has been on the list for a long time, and I'm very happy to have this one. Drum roll. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, it's a Habs. Oh.
Do you know who?
Either Caulfield?
Yeah, buddy.
There we go.
Caulfield.
There it is.
Double deuces there. I do actually like the reverse retro one, the powder blue, but I had to go with the classic.
Of course you did, yeah.
I mean, not only with this new obsession of mine with collecting sweaters, but I just really eventually one of the things is going to be getting all original 6 for sure. Even though I hate the Rangers and I hate the Bruins, I hate the Leafs. I don't want any of their sweaters, but I think I'll probably find, some players from growing up that I can actually be like, okay, I can at least rock this, like a Ray Bork I would rock, you know what I mean? Yeah. From, that era.
A Doug Gilmour, maybe Leaf.
Yeah. Well, if they had a Cujo, if I could get a Cujo, I would totally rock a Cujo Maple Leafs. But and the rags, I have no idea. I don't think I would. I don't know. That's gonna take a lot.
Great one.
Maybe a Gretz.
Yeah.
But anyway, something I really love about this one is, so while this may or may not have been shipped from China, there's, if you can read that if you're on the YouTube, there's French here on the collar.
Beautiful.
So
I love those touches.
It really kind of gives the authenticness. I love these Adidas sweaters. Again, this is a side conversation, but Fanatics is going to be taking over NHL gear in next season. So get an Adidas sweater while you can, people, because
Absolutely.
These Adidas ones are top tier, across the board, the best sweaters I have, even better than the Reebok ones. Reeboks were good, but these Adidas ones are top tier. And when Fanatics comes through, it's probably going to suck.
Yeah.
It's probably going to suck really bad. So get an Adidas one while you can. So that was the sweater game. Hey, we're going to have you have another chance next week, Justin.
One of these days I'll get it right.
Yes, the sweater. Yeah. So our main conversation for today, Captain's first line there, what we're going to talk about, Justin, here's a question for you. Does the NHL need enforcers back in the game?
You know, thinking about it specifically about, again, I hate always going to the Homer talk and talking about my New Jersey Devils, but the Devils absolutely do need somebody who can be that big punishing guy who's going to keep their stars from getting hit and getting hurt. Because when you think about Heischer being when he got hurt, when you think about Jack when he got hurt, it's their guy. Our guys are getting hit, and there's no retaliation for it. There's nobody to stick up for Florida, as I mentioned, the Cap. There's nobody to stick up for Jackie, and so people can just punish and be really physical with the Devils, and nothing's going to come of it. Is it a dying art? I mean, maybe, because Riva was brought into Toronto to kind of be that guy, and so far, no dice.
Nothing.
Yeah. So
even to that same point, the rematch that they just had with Boston after the Marchand incident, the previous meetup before, nothing happened. Literally nothing. So
it's just, after even watching the Edmonton game, New Jersey played Edmonton on Sunday, and Connor McDavid pushing Mike McLeod around, and it's like, it should have been a penalty. That's a conversation, for a different day. But it's the Devils definitely need some sort of physical presence, and because physicality is part of the game. And if you're going to let your guys get pushed around, then the results, the proof is in the pudding, Joe. Like, look at the Devils' record, and you look who they're losing against. They lost 2 to the Caps. What do the Caps have? They've got Tom Wilson. He's a guy who's going to go out there. He's going to protect Ovi. Ovi doesn't need as much protecting as my guys do. But point being, I do think enforcers, at least in some regard, do need to come back. And specifically, you look at the Cup years of the Devils. Scott Stevens was our guy. We have nobody like that, and the results show that we obviously need somebody to stick up for our guys. Being that you have a guy, I imagine that you're probably on that same side of the argument.
Yeah, well, I mean, even, Tom Wilson is there for that. His game has stepped over to more of the, playmaker side. So he's not, fighting a lot these days, but he will, so that there is that option, right? And specifically what made me think about this was just in this last week, there was 2 instances. Dylan Larkin, the Red Wings are playing the Ottawa Senators. Dylan Larkin essentially gets knocked out. There was a scrum in front of the net. and I forget exactly who it was, but essentially he was getting punched in the back of the head. Dylan Larkin was, and he's essentially laying there on the ice, essentially knocked out, right? And David Perron ends up cross-checking Artem Zub in the face. This was after the play was done. And Zub wasn't the guy that did it. I forget who actually did it, but it wasn't even him. But Perron, comes, he cross-checks Zub in the face, which obviously shouldn't have happened either. But that instance right there, if there was a guy that was actually that enforcer type, well, guess what? Dylan Larkin wouldn't have gotten punched in the face, or punched in the back of the head in front of the net. Number one, he's the captain. Number two, he's one of the best players on the Red Wings. So if there was an enforcer there, that wouldn't even have got there. David Perron wouldn't even have been put in that position to cross-check Artem Zub in the face. You know what I mean? Another instance over this last week, the Columbus Blue Jackets were playing the Florida Panthers. And Gudbranson was coming down. It might have been a delayed icing call. I forget exactly. Or maybe it was just a play that was coming down on the Blue Jackets side of the rink. Cousins gets tangled up with Gudbranson. They both go into the boards. You could analyze it even more. Was it a dirty hit? I don't think so. I think Cousins is just trying to get to the puck, and he got inside of Gudbranson's stick side, and they go into the boards. There's a little scrum, but so later in that period, after the penalties were done, Gudbranson grabs Cousins, pulls him down to the ground, and just starts pounding his face. And again, this is a situation where, is Matty Tkachuk an enforcer? Not necessarily. He will fight, but he's not necessarily an enforcer, right? We've talked about this before. He's more of, kind of a pot stirrer, but he's not really, he will fight and throw down. He will drop the gloves, but that's not his role to be an enforcer. But again, if you got a guy that is an enforcer, that never would have happened. So I think to kind of round this whole conversation back to the start of the question, I do think you need enforcers in the game of hockey. Again, we talked about last week, Tortorella's comment. It's true. Number one, we've gotten to a point where you can't even throw a clean hit without guys wanting to scrum. That's the first problem. If there were enforcers, it doesn't have to be on every single, team, because not every team, even back when we were growing up, had enforcers, but there was a lot more enforcers present in the game. Those things wouldn't happen, right? If there was a dirty hit, somebody was going to pay for it. Or if there was, something that was actually dirty, you were going to pay for it on the next shift, or it was going to be taken care of. And that was the end of it. And that's the whole point of what the game kind of was essentially built on, and why enforcers are important. If something dirty happens, you're going to take care of it on the ice. There's going to be a fight, and then we're past it, and we move on. And I think the biggest issue is that, and we've talked about this before, NHL player safety is a joke. It's an absolute joke. So if we actually have enforcers and the players, essentially keeping themselves in check, then there will be less injuries happen, like cross checks to the face after a dirty hit. Okay, maybe that'll still be present, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, the players essentially are able to do kind of whatever, because player safety is a joke, whether it's the fines or the suspensions or whatever. Player safety is a joke, and we don't have any enforcers to keep the game as it used to be, where, hey, that was a dirty hit. Like, okay, well, we're going to fight next shift. You and me, we're scrapping. And that just doesn't happen anymore. And that's the problem.
I also wonder, because I spent a lot of time on the Devil's Reddit, and I kind of looking up after like weird hits and stuff, looking on Twitter and whatnot. First of all, the Devils get accused of diving a lot. I don't know if you saw the cross check from McDavid to McLeod into the boards that didn't get called.
I didn't.
But McLeod's getting accused of diving, and I'm like, I know this is semi-related. He's getting accused of diving, and who dives face first into the boards? Like, and I say that because related to this conversation, Jack,
not many. Not usually.
Exactly.
Not usually.
Like, who's going to do that? Jack Hughes, again, got accused of diving. Ekholm got up in arms about it. He got tripped up, and he's getting accused of diving again into the boards. Again, like, you know, if there's an enforcer who's going to just come through and be like, yo, you know, just lay Ekholm out for, I don't know, man. Like, it's just, I know there's a connection here, and I brought it here because the Devils desperately need somebody to stick up for their guys, because their guys are smaller. And I hate seeing a scrum come out just for normal physicality, kind of to your point. Whereas I would rather see the fight because somebody was dirty, and let's get the fight, let's get past it, and let's get back to just physical hockey. I don't know, man. You know, I'm going a long way to rope the Devils into this conversation, and I shouldn't. But I tend to do that, and going a long way to say that I agree with you.
No, it's okay, because you're right. I mean, they are a smaller team, though.
So, I mean, and the league is kind of trending that way too, I think.
They're that smaller team. So,
well, I think we got I think we've got the delay now. It was working so well.
I think we do too. Yeah, I think it's on a little bit of a delay. It was too. It really was working really well. I mean, yeah, but I agree with you in the sense of the Devils are one of those teams that are just a smaller team. So if you had a guy that was there to enforce, you wouldn't get those dirty hits. You wouldn't get, just egregious penalties. Well, you probably would still get those egregious penalties, but again, it just comes back to guys would be a little bit more hesitant to throw a dirty hit or to do something cheap because they know they're going to have to answer the bell for it. So again, it all wraps up to player safety being crap, just an absolute joke. And if you had more guys present in the league to take care of business and answer the bell, essentially, I'm going to think if I was in the NHL, if I wasn't a goalie, I would be a stay-at-home defenseman because I'm not that skilled, but I'm a big, tall guy. So I would probably be, if I was to ever get the NHL, it would probably be an enforcer role because I'm not that skilled, but I could probably throw some hands, or at least I would try, and I would be that guy to have to answer the bell. Like, that would be my position, right? So if there was guys like that, you'd be a little bit more hesitant of like, I don't really want to have to throw hands tonight, so I'm going to watch my P's and Q's, and that's what the league is missing.
So let me ask you this before we move on from the conversation then. Like a guy like Jacob Trouba he's kind of known as a dirty player. Do you think he is a dirty player? Because I looked at him laying out Timo last year, and Timo hasn't been the same since in the playoffs. But is he dirty? And is Jacob Trouba a result of not having enforcers in the league, do you think?
Well, I will say that Trouba, I think, has thrown some very questionable hits in his career. I don't necessarily know that I would call Trouba dirty, but I do think I would say every fifth hit is very questionable. He has thrown some dirty hits there. I would agree that. I don't necessarily know if he's a dirty player, though. I think that might be up for a little bit more debate and have to research his whole career, but if that makes sense. But I do think the way that he plays is pretty free in the sense that generally he could throw any hit and he's not going to have to answer the bell for it because there's nobody to really fight him, right? He's a big dude. Who's going to fight him? So I do think there is that, how I was mentioning earlier, that there's no I'll call it fear. It's not necessarily the fear that you think of, but there's no fear or hesitation of like, I'm gonna have to drop the gloves again tonight for the third time, right? There's no hesitation of that. So he can throw the body. And going back to my first point, is it dirty? I don't know if I'm fully prepared to say that he's a dirty player, but there are some questionable hits he throws because he doesn't have to answer for it.
So essentially, I guess the answer would be yeah. Like, he is a direct result of not having, the enforcer type on most clubs. So I mean, again, the word dirty, that's for whatever, but like it's just been something that's been thrown around. So I was just curious since we were there.
No, sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying because he's thrown a couple of hits on some of my guys. I'm like, ugh. Obviously, when it's your team, you're like, oh, screw you. You know what I mean? So I get it. Even when he was on Winnipeg, he's kind of always been that player. Again, he's been around for a bit, but that enforcer role has been the dying role on hockey clubs, and he's just been able to continue to throw heavy hits and not have to answer the bell for it. So, I mean, to kind of go back to the first part of the conversation, Eric Goodbranson was suspended for 1 game under the aggressor rule for pulling Nick Cousins down to the ice. David Perron was suspended for 6 games without pay for cross-checking Artem Zub in the face. David Perron, the day of this recording on Wednesday, he has a in-person hearing. So he could get the thing about the hearing is he could either still be stuck with 6 games. He could potentially get more games, or it could be less games. So it's kind of like, kind of tossing, tossing a quarter and seeing if it's going to get heads or tails. Right. So it could turn out worse for David Perron. I do think the 1 game suspension for Goodbranson, I think that's probably the right decision. I mean, that was like a premeditated thing where he went after, Nick Cousins. So he definitely should have been suspended. I feel like 1 game probably should have been more for Eric Goodbranson because that was premeditated, where David Perron was kind of acting out of like instinct, right? So yeah, he cross-checked Artem Zub in the face. I do think Perron should have been suspended as well, but 6 games, I don't know. I almost think that's flipped. I mean, Goodbranson had time to think about it. He spent 5 minutes in the box. He had time to think about it, right? Whereas Perron was acting out of instinct. Like your captain just got knocked out basically. But that's a whole other conversation. And again, to kind of close out the first line, we can change them up. I just think that it's become a much faster game, which we've both said we enjoy a faster game. But man, that one guy on a squad would make a big difference. Of you could still have a fast game and play with a little bit more. I don't know if respect is the right word. Here's a good question for you, Justin. Pass or shoot, players have less respect for each other in today's game. Pass or shoot.
Ooh, that is interesting because sometimes it feels like they have more respect for each other, but then there's other times and other teams where it feels like you have respect for your guys, but not the other club. Wow. That's a good one, man. Shoot. I guess in like the very meat of this conversation, I'm going to pass because I don't think they do. I think they have respect in their ability. You know what I mean? But I don't think they have respect the same way the guys we grew up watching had respect for each other in the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, I think it does. It just kind of popped in my head, and I don't know if necessarily it was worded the right way because I think I think when you're in the league, and you play this game, that you have respect for your brothers, if you will, in the league. Like, oh, you made it to the NHL too. Like, I respect that because you worked hard to get here. So I don't necessarily think respect is the right word, but I'm kind of going to pass on that as well, because I don't think they lack respect for their fellow, player across the other side of the red line there. But definitely, I just think they're just, I don't even know what to say. It's like they're playing so free now. Again, there's no consequences for how you're playing right now, I think, is the better way. It's like, would you agree, pass or shoot, that there doesn't seem to be many consequences as there used to be for playing the game?
Yeah, I'll shoot on that all day. If there doesn't appear to be in-game consequence from another player.
Yeah.
So I'll shoot on that.
I think that's the better way to phrase that. But okay, yeah. All right. Well, it's, you know what, Justin? I mean, it's kind of a superstar check-in time, in the sense that we're going to get to our 3 stars of the week. You know what? Superstar check-in. Finally, it's about time, Austin Matthews. Maybe you listen to this podcast. Maybe you listen to me chirp you every single week about earning $13 million and not showing up every game. As a matter of fact, 4 of the last 5 games, Austin Matthews has scored a point. In 5 games, he has 6 goals, 2 assists, and 8 points. He's earning his money. Imagine that, Justin.
Wow.
And, the one game where he didn't score, they had to take Ottawa to overtime and win 4-3. So maybe if you would have done something in that game, Austin, you wouldn't have had to go to overtime. You could have ended it in regulation. But I guess that's neither here nor there. Finally, Austin Matthews, you show up and earn your $13 million. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a supporting role here, if you will. I'm going to give you the 3rd star of the week, Austin, with a U or a TON, however you spell your name. Austin Matthews, your $13 million that I still don't think you're worth, because you're probably going to disappear now for 5 more games. But again, that's neither here nor there. 3rd star of the week, Austin Matthews. Here's a little teeny tiny golf clap for you if you're watching on YouTube. I'm literally just clapping my pointer finger and my thumb. Congratulations, Austin. Keep listening to this podcast, though. Maybe you'll earn that $13 million a little bit more over the next 10 games.
How hilarious would it be if he was like, "Hey, I just wanted to thank the Barn Chirpers pod for talking so much smack." That would be the best.
You're welcome.
Yeah, right.
You're welcome, buddy. Yeah. Or thank you for talking so much smack. I know who you are. I would have. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you. I'm just trying to make you a superstar, buddy. That's it. I just want to see you succeed. I would love to see you actually. I'm trying to gas you up, man. I would love for you to bring a actual championship to the province or the country of Canada, because you're supposed to be the guy. I just want to see it. That's all. I just want to see it.
Yeah. We got William Nylander just ahead of him at 2nd star. And, spoiler alert, we were kind of just doing the top 3 and on just the stat line, because, sometimes it works out that way. But 5 games for Nylander, 1 goal, again, in 5 games, 8 assists, 9 points, 8 apples. I mean, it's in 5 games, but that's a lot, man. You gotta love a guy who dishes the puck, and I mean, of course, your team has to be able to finish it. But 9 points in a week, eight apples. That's top tier. That's way to go, Nylander.
Well, and I mean, Willie's in a contract here. He's trying to get signed, whether it's in Toronto, which they can't afford to pay him right now, but he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. So he's trying to get paid. He's been on a tear recently. So yeah, I mean, 9 points over 5 games. I mean, that's pretty good of a clip there for old Willie Nylander. And it just so happens, I mean, like you said, we're kind of just going right off the stat line here, but I mean, both the Leafs have done well over the last 10, despite not having great goaltending. Man, McJesus, Connor McDavid, first star of the week. We do expect this from him, but it's interesting because since the coaching change, we talked about this. The Oilers need to go on some heaters. Well, they're on their first heater right now, 8-2 over the last 10. Connor McDavid, 4 games, 2 goals, 7 apples, 9 points. So again, we expect this. We expect this from a superstar like Connor McDavid. But again, he's showing that he is a superstar. Even in losing efforts, he still scores goals and puts up apples. And that is a true superstar in my eyes. But yeah, I mean, first star of the week, we expect this from Connor McDavid, 9 points. I do want to touch on, because the stat line, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 8 guys that all have 8 points. And I want to touch on those guys real quick, because some of them are interesting to see on the stat line. Number 4, Nazem Kadri, 5 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. Calgary's not necessarily on a heater, but they're seemingly turning things around. Miro Heiskanen, 5 games, 4 and 4, 8 points. Mark Stone, same thing, 8 points. Evan Bouchard, 8 points. Blake Coleman, also of the Flames. So there's 2 Flames, actually 3 Flames on this top 10 list. Kadri, Coleman, and Dobson. That's good for Calgary, number 1. And then Nate McKinnon rounds out that top 11, I guess. And then Sam Reinhart. So a couple of names that we've heard before. But an interesting, over the last week, names that we haven't seen on this top 10. Or excuse me, names that we haven't seen on the top 3. So interesting to see the Canadian teams start to maybe turn things around.
Yeah. It's not too late. I mean, the Oilers have managed to pull, I think they're up to 25 points. I think they're still just outside of the wild card race, but they've made up like a ton of ground in like 2 weeks. They beat the Devs the other night, so I'm well aware of how they're playing.
Well, like we said, they're going to have to go on a couple of heaters to bring it back, and they're kind of doing it right now. Which kind of brings me to our next thing as we pull the goalie here. A team that was on a heater, they've faltered a little bit over the last 10 at 3-7. The St. Louis Blues relieved Craig Berube of his coaching duties, a quarter of the way into the season. I got to say that I'm surprised by this move by the St. Louis Blues. If I was going to fire him, I would have fired him at the very beginning of the season before they kind of started going on a heater. We talked about them, I guess, about 3 weeks ago. They were on the first heater. They kind of continued that for about 2 weeks. And again, over the last 10, they've, fallen down to 3-7. But an interesting move by the St. Louis Blues. I will say, I think it's time, because I forget what show we talked about, but recently talked about, I thought that, coaches should have about a 3 to 4 year window. And if you don't get it done, move on. Right. Well, Berube's been there for a bit. And truly, while the Blues won the cup in 19, but in 19, at the beginning of the year, that year, they were in last place, and they ended up getting into the playoffs as a wild card, and they won the cup. We know that. But they really haven't been a good team for a while. Like, they weren't even a good team in 19. Truly, they just happened to catch some luck and be good and win the cup that year. So I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm kind of going to counteract myself. I'm surprised that it happened now, but I'm not surprised it happened, if that makes sense.
Oh, 1,000%. Like, just to kind of echo you, like, is coaching really the issue with the 3-7? No, like, they, by all measure, the St. Louis Blues were outperforming. Like, we talked about it in the preseason, and then, like, again, a couple weeks ago, we were just shocked that they were hanging around still, and not only that, they were playing well. And you can't pin any of this on him. I mean, you could, but to do it a quarter of the way into the season doesn't make any sense. Like, I think you put it succinctly. The fact that it happened, not shocking. The fact that it happened now is the weird part. So I don't know that gives them anything, because I don't know that coaching at this point is the problem. If that.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the Blues are kind of in purgatory right now. Are they rebuilding? Sort of. Are they competing? They don't really have the guys to compete. They're trying to get rid of assets. Jacob Vrana was, I just saw a report that Jacob Vrana was just about to be put on waivers, I want to say Monday, but apparently he might be in trade talks. So they're trying to get rid of his contract. They're trying to get rid of their top 4D guys, Krug, Falk, Scandella, and I'm forgetting the other guy right now.
Right.
But they're trying to get rid of those contracts, but all of them have, or Parayko, yeah, they all have no trade clauses. So like the Blues are trying to retool and rebuild, but they essentially have guys that are stuck there. So I can't really blame Craig Berube for having a crappy team that was outperforming over the last couple of weeks. Like, come on, man, it's not his fault. I think he's a solid coach, but he is in the old boys club, so I'm okay with him getting out of there, truly.
Exactly. And shoot, you're trying to unload some D-men. I know a place that could probably use some. I don't know if we have any assets to trade for them, but we could use some demon up in Jersey.
So the last thing that I wanted to touch on, the Sportsnet released the NHL All Star skills format for 2024, and I thought this was kind of pretty cool. So they're going to have 8 events in the skills, and there will be 12 players competing for points in 8 events. Each player competes in 4 of the first 6 events. Top 8 point earners advance to the 7th event, and then the top 6 earners advance to the 8th event. Player with the most points after 8 events wins a $1 million prize. I think that's kind of cool. You give a little bit of stakes, if you will, to the All-Star game, or excuse me, to the skills competition. Gives a reason for people to tune in, because otherwise we're just watching skills. Like, okay, yeah, cool. But this gives some type of competition for people to tune into, and I'm here for that. I think the NHL did a good job with this again for once. They're doing something good for once. Bring on viewers.
It sounds complicated, but like it's not. And it, like you said, it puts some stakes on it and a reason to watch. And NHL needs all of that they can get, because I don't think people are watching in droves. And as a matter of fact, yes. I feel like with all the All-Star stuff, especially, I can't even recall 97, 98 the last time I watched and or cared about anything All-Star related.
Generally speaking, yeah. I do think a couple of these are pretty cool. So you got the Upper Deck NHL Fastest Skater, Event 1. Event 2, Rogers NHL Hardest Shot. Number 3, Stick Handling, which I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. One-timers, Passing Challenge, Cheetos NHL Accuracy Shooting, Honda NHL Shootout. That's for the top 8 players. And then the final event will be a Pepsi NHL Obstacle Course for the top 6 players. And that event will be double for points earned. The only thing that is a glaring thing for me, so DraftKings Sportsbook is going to be sponsoring the NHL All Star Skills Competition. I see a couple of sponsors here in the events, which is great. Upper Deck, Rogers, Cheetos, Honda, and Pepsi. Those last 3 are huge. The only thing I'm wondering is, like, why do we have 3 events that aren't sponsored by anybody? That's kind of, I know we're in the empty net here. It's supposed to be quick, but those 3 events that aren't sponsored by anything is interesting to me. Like, you got Cheetos, Honda, and Pepsi. Why couldn't you get, like, I don't know, Dropbox,
Milk.
something like you could have easily gotten another like 5K from something. I don't know. Chipotle. I don't know. Like, what are we doing, NHL? Come on.
Yeah, that's weird.
They never once asked
and
me. Hard work works fitness. I'll sponsor. I'll sponsor something.
love it.
NHL, call me up. Find me on the internet. Hard work works fitness. I'll sponsor something for the skills competition. All right. That's all I got this week, Cap. So we'll kind of keep this quick, sort of. I mean, 40 minutes. That's quick, right?
Yeah, for us. It's quick for us.
I will say though, yeah, I will say last night the Sharks beat the Winnipeg Jets 2-1. The Sharks are kind of on a heater of their own, sort of.
I mean, as much as the worst team in hockey can be. Playing with heart. You got to respect it.
I mean, they're 6-2-2 over the last 10. And remember, they started 0-10-1. So here's the last thing I have for you, Cap. Pass or shoot. The Sharks will be the worst team in the league this year. We talked about this early in the year, but pass or shoot now on December 13th, 2023. Sharks will be the worst team in the league at the end of the year. Pass or shoot.
I still got to shoot because like right now they just passed Anaheim. But Anaheim has players, and I feel like they should be able to get a couple wins. At some point, the gas tank's probably going to run out in San Jose. You know, again, shoot, man, I love that they are playing the way that they're playing and they're getting wins that they have no business getting. But at some point, that runs out and trade deadline comes up. You have guys like Duclair, Hurdle, they're probably gone. And then what? Chances are they're going to run out of gas and end up being the worst team in hockey.
I get that for sure. I'm going to pass, though. I think that the Chicago Blackhawks are going to be the worst team again, are going to be the worst team in the league because they're going to get the number one pick again, and they're going to get Celebrini, and that's, of course, how things are going to go because it's Chicago.
Excuse me while I vomit.
Yep. And with that said, again, we are the Barn Chirpers at Barn Chirpers Pod on Instagram and the threads and wherever you listen to us in podcasts. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. We appreciate it. Until next week, skate hard, keep your head up, and we'll talk to you then. Take a lap, stick taps, and sellies, boys.
Boy.